Hello everyone, it's Farket here, and in this video I'm going to show you a tier list of the weapons in the forest. I've never done a tier list before, and I really want to do one. Now, this tier list is going to be objective and subjective. The main objective part is I'm going to have a list of stats and things about the weapon that pop up on the side. How I'm grading these weapons isn't so much how much damage they do or anything, it's a whole combination of things. Because a lot of these weapons can be used as tools and for other things. I'll put a link in the description if you actually want to check it out yourself. Also, I'm going to have timestamps at the top so you know which weapon I'm covering at the time. Just a couple of notes before we start. The little plus sign you see above the upgraded stick and the upgraded rock just means they're upgraded, because you've got the non-upgraded variants, just the rock and just the stick. The bomb also has a splatter sign. That means that it's a sticky bomb versus the non-sticky one. And the katana has an N and the H/HS, which means normal and hard survival. This is a very unique weapon for this specific example. I'm going to be keeping it in a chronological order just to make it easier on myself and how I've presented the stats. The first one, modern axe. This definitely goes in S tier. It is pretty much the ultimate weapon in this game because it can have all upgrades attached. It has a very good burn length if you apply cloth to it. It does a lot of damage. It's easy to find. It's the best axe for cutting down trees. And yeah, it's just overall a beast of a weapon. I'm actually kind of pissed that it's not coming to Sons of the Forest, but they're bringing back the katana. That annoys me, but oh well. I should mention that a couple of these weapons, mainly the axes, have a bug where if you do a power attack, it caps its damage at like 20. There's something broken about it and it seems to be inconsistent. Next is the upgraded stick, and I'm going to put that in A tier. The reason being is that if you upgrade it with half teeth, half glass, it actually becomes a formidable weapon. It's also very good for getting leaves, and its burn length is the highest out of all the weapons that can have cloth attached and burn. Next is the crafted club. It is a pretty good weapon. I'm going to put it in B tier. It's really easy to make. It's just one skull and one stick, so pretty much any effigy you take down, you're going to be able to craft it. Does a fair bit of damage, has a good burn length. It's very similar in terms of the modern axe, but it's actually pretty much worse in every way slightly. You can pretty much get this weapon right at the start of a game, because you often have effigies around the plane, so it can be a good start. It is a lot slower than the plain axe, so if you're used to fast weapons, it might be a bit of a harder start with it, I guess. I should note for all these weapons that I'm going to be listing here, I do not recommend you use feathers at all for upgrades. Always use a combination of 14 glass and 16 teeth. The reason I say 14 glass is that you can only hold 7 bottles of booze at a time, so once you get your max, upgrade it, get another max, and then upgrade it. Then throw teeth on the rest. The next is a club, and if I was being subjective, I would put it in A tier, but really it should be in S tier. It doesn't have as much use as the modern axe. However, it does have the highest damage in the game, and you can make its swing speed so slow that if you run out of stamina while swinging it, your attack speed actually doesn't go down. If you get really good with this weapon, you can fight without stamina, no issue whatsoever. I've never been able to do it because around the time I found out about it, I kind of stopped playing the forest, so I didn't learn that skill. But if you're a new player, which you're probably not going to be because Sons of the Forest is coming out soon, and you learn to do this, you will have no trouble fighting with this weapon. It will be better than any other weapon in the game, for melee anyway. It is fairly easy to get, but you have to kill a cannibal that's got one, which can happen on day 1, or you might not come across one until like day 10. It just depends. Next is a rusty axe. I'm going to put it in B tier as well. And the reason being is that it's actually very similar to the crafted club in that it's worse than the modern axe in every single way, but only slightly. With the exception of block, it does have max block. Now I did tests on block to see what's actually going on with that. And there's a few weapons such as the club itself that have max block. And what it means is that you won't get damaged at all when you're blocking. However, the next step down, which is the modern axe and I believe the upgraded stick, you barely take any damage. It's like 1 hit point. And there's this weird thing with block in the game where once you get to 60 health or below and you're blocking with a 9 out of 10 weapon, you don't even take any damage then. It's strange how block works in the game, it really is. I've done plenty of videos on the stats and things of this, what I'm covering right now. And there's a playlist I've got. I might link it here if I can remember to do it. And it will cover more in depth about what I'm talking about if you're that interested. But yeah, it's a solid weapon. You find it in the same cave as a scuba tank, so it can be fairly easy to get. Not as easy as a modern axe though. Next is a plain axe, and I'm going to put it in D tier. The reason being is that it really isn't that good of a weapon. It is a lot worse than the modern axe in pretty much every single way. There's actually no real benefit to it. It does swing faster, but you don't want to get used to that in my opinion, because faster swinging weapons generally do a lot less damage and you'll probably run out of stamina before you actually kill someone with it. It's a decent starting weapon, though in my opinion, get the modern axe as fast as you can. You won't regret it. Though it is a lot better than the next weapon, which is the crafted axe, and that's going into F tier. It is so bad that there is actually no point in having it. It doesn't even look good as a crafted axe. The plain axe is a lot better than it. There's just no point in making it, except if you're a collector, which I am, so I'll make it. It's a waste of one rope in my opinion though. It's just so damn slow. The next weapon is an upgraded rock, and it's going to go in E tier. It doesn't have that much use. There's an achievement for smashing in a cannibal's head and killing them with a rock, and it's not even this rock. You got to use the other rock, this one down here. It just swings so damn slow and uses so much stamina. And I think there's got a bug attached to it that the faster you click or press the button to attack, it uses stamina even if you haven't actually used the weapon. The same applies to the turtle shell. I think it does. It just doesn't do that much damage. You can upgrade it with glass, and you can even attach cloth to it and light it on fire, and it will set you on fire. I guess that's a sense of humor thing by a nut. I think if you're going for immersion, like if they're on the ground using a rock to finish them off, but it just doesn't have that much use. It just swings too damn slow. It leaves you far too open to be counterattacked, and you can't block with it. It's actually a bit of a meme weapon. The only reason it's not going in F tier is that the crafted axe is just so much worse. The next weapon is the tennis racket. And this is going in A tier. It sounds like a meme weapon, and when you pick it up and first use it, it will feel like that for certain because its damage is so low. Though there's this hidden stat attribute to it, and that is that it uses barely any stamina. So if you upgrade it with 16 teeth and 14 glass, it starts swinging slower and doing a lot more damage. Because it's swinging slower, you're using less stamina. So you can fight a long time without running out of stamina with this weapon, and it swings fast enough to keep them stun locked. I really like this weapon because it's funny and it's actually effective. Now you can't use it to hit tennis balls with, so I'm actually gonna have to move it down to F tier. No, I'm just kidding, it's staying up at A. But yeah, you can't do that. It's a great weapon though. Next is the machete. Ooh, I should have thought this one through because I'm actually stuck on this one. It's either A or B. I'm feeling very generous today. Feel like I'm in a good mood and I had a decent sleep, so I'm going to put it in A. The machete is basically identical to the katana with the exception that its range is piss poor. It used to have this benefit that when you got it, it used to take down stick trees in one hit, but then they changed the way that works and now it's based on damage, and there's a lot of weapons that take down stick trees in one hit. It's at the bottom of the sinkhole though. You might not end up getting it unless it's late game, but it can be a mean weapon if it's got full damage upgrades because it can hit hard and fast. There's no spot in between A and B, but its range is so short. I'm just going to throw it in B tier. No, I'm going to put it back. I hope you get what I mean. I'm just going to let you decide. It's a good weapon. It's just, yeah, some factors that are just dropping it down a bit for me. Mainly its range and location. I'm just going to move on to the next weapon. Next one is a weak spear. Actually, no stuff. It's going down to B tier. The next one is the weak spear, and I'm going to have to put it in A tier. It's terrible as a melee weapon. Do not stab things with it. It is god-awful. The strength of it is in its throwing. Now, when I get to, say, the upgraded spear, if you throw the upgraded spear and weak spear, they both do the same amount of damage, which is what you should be using spears for. They're very good for hunting things like deer and wild boar and crocodiles, and they're so cheap to make. It's only 2 sticks. So if you lose it, it's not a big deal. Another plus is that you can craft a spear bag, which means you can carry 5 of them. I don't really recommend using them on enemies because they take a big chunk of your stamina out, but their damage is still fairly good. They can't have upgrades or anything like that, which is fine, but it's because they're so cheap and so handy to have is why it's here. Next weapon is the upgraded spear. Now I'm going to be super subjective here. I'm probably going to put this in C. The reason being is that you'd probably make this and use this for 2 things. Using it as a melee weapon, do not throw it because you can lose it, or it could glitch out and go underneath the ground. I don't know, just don't throw it. Use the weak spear for throwing. You can upgrade it to the Incendiary Spear, which I'll get to, which does the most damage out of 1 hit in any weapon of the game, but it's 1 shot. It just uses a lot of stamina for what it is. It does have high range. Its usefulness, honestly, for me, the most I use it is for destroying structures that I cannot use a whole cutter for, because it doesn't have any AoE. What you're targeting to take down, it will hit it, and it does more damage than the weak spear, so you're better off using this to take down structures, because you don't want to accidentally hit and break something else that's there. If this did more damage throwing than this, I would probably more likely move it up, but its uses for me have just been for destroying structures. Its swing or thrust speed is just too low. You're too open to counterattack. It does have the longest range of any weapon in the game, excluding ranged weapons, of course. Unless you get really good with fighting with it, I don't recommend it. If I was feeling more objective, I'd probably move it up, but I never got good with it because it's very rare that you're fighting enemies one-on-one. This actually might be good against bigger mutants. Actually, no, screw it. I'm going to move it up. I feel like I'm being a bit too subjective. For me, it's not that great. If you can utilize its range advantage, then you can make it work a lot better than what I could. Next is the Katana. First, I'm going to start with the normal variant, and I'm going to move it up an A tier. Now, what this means is that if you're playing in normal mode, I think it's an A tier weapon. The reason being is that enemies have a lot lower health. This thing swings ridiculously fast. It uses a ton of stamina, but its AoE is good. Where it was actually probably better was before they changed how cannibals were. They used to dogpile you, like 5 at a time. It was brilliant. I loved it. But I think people were complaining that the game was too difficult when they did that, which it probably was. But the AoE used to be able to hit 5 cannibals at the same time. It cannot be upgraded, and that is why I have such an issue with it. It's one of the only melee weapons you can't upgrade, actually, which hurts it so much. If it could be upgraded, this weapon wouldn't be separated into normal or hard survival. It would be straight an S tier, because its damage would be so high. It would be one of the best weapons in the game. But it isn't, so we have to deal with what it is. Now, moving on to the Katana and hard survival, I'm going to be generous and put it in C tier. It is better than the plain axe. It doesn't have as much utility. It's still alright, but enemies in hard survival are damage sponges, and the Katana just doesn't have the force behind it to be useful. If you have 20 strength and you're using the Katana, you won't even be able to take a cannibal down before you run out of stamina. It also has terrible blocks, so if you miss once when you're doing these swings, it's going to leave you open to a counterattack. And I've noticed that a lot of beginner players, they don't know how to fight too easily with melee weapons, and they rely on that stun effect. If you let them break that stun and get away, they will counterattack you and they will mess you up. The main problem I have with this weapon is that it's so different to all the other weapons, and that I think it actually handicaps players. They get so used to attacking so fast and keeping enemies stun locked in normal mode, they go to hard survival and they just get brutalized. It just doesn't have enough hitting power. Its utility is pretty average. It's pretty good for getting sticks. It's not good for getting leaves. Because of its big AoE, you can take down a whole clump of stick trees at once, which is pretty good. Wonder how many of you thought I was going to crap on it a lot more than this. I think that's enough. Next is the climbing axe, and I'm just gonna you don't need this in the game at all. I'm just gonna, because I'm gonna put it in E tier purely because it's unique. It's the only one that can make you climb up rocks and that, but you don't even really need to do that in this game. You used to be able to use it to climb out of the sinkhole, and I think you still can, but it's way too difficult now. I think there's an area in the end game that's supposed to like indicate that you're supposed to have this, if that makes sense, to get past a bit, but you don't even need it. You can just do this trick jump and you'll get up and get past. I just don't know what you really need this for, but it's unique, and I like unique. It is a terrible weapon. It cannot be upgraded. Any melee weapon that can't be upgraded really hurts it. I don't think I have anything else to say though. Yeah. I'm hoping in Sons of the Forest they have this and it has more use. Maybe. I don't know. Next is the chainsaw. And subjective me, I actually don't really like using chainsaws to cut down trees, but it's really good for it. I'm going to put it in S tier. It's not a very good weapon against enemies. I did tests on it and its damage is actually through the roof. The problem is that when you get hit, you stop using the chainsaw. You can't keep using it while you're doing that stun animation. So if you can keep them stunned while using it, you're good, but if they keep breaking that stun, you're going to get messed up. And also, it's just so good for cutting down trees. When it was first released, the sound effect for it was way too high. It was really, really loud. I think it does draw the attention of enemies, but the thing is it cuts down trees so fast, you should be able to stack up 4 log carts and get out of there before they arrive. It does rely on fuel, and I cannot remember how the fuel works, whether it respawns or not. I think it doesn't above ground, but below ground it does in caves. So if you find a good spot and you like using it, keep that spot in mind and go and visit regularly so you can get the gas for it. It's just a good all-round tool. Because the game's the forest, using it to cut down trees a lot. If I was being more subjective, I'd put it down because technically there are better ways, but this is more consistent. Next is the turtle shell, and I'm going to put it in D tier. It does have max block. Its damage is crap. As I mentioned before about the upgraded rock, this definitely gets affected by the clicking damage thing. It does barely any damage, so don't use it as a weapon. What I mean by the stamina thing is that every time you click, it uses stamina whether you've hit with it or not. So if you use an auto clicker, you'll drain your stamina in 1 second completely down to 0, and you'll hit once. The reason I'm putting it in D tier is it does have the toboggan ability. I don't know what they call it because I'm not in a place that has snow, but you can ride it downhill and stuff like that. And there's a Mario Kart mod for it, which is really fun if you're on PC. You basically just hop on it and you start driving like it's a go-kart. It goes so fast, it's funny. It's very good for that, and it's fun, and it's unique. So I'm going to put it in D tier. I don't think you can assign it to a weapon slot though. There's a few things here that cannot be assigned to weapon slots. I think I just can't remember with the turtle shell. Next is the arm, and that's gone straight in the F tier. It uses so much stamina, and it does barely any damage. It has no use whatsoever. Unless you want to beat your enemies to death with their friend's arm, I guess, in a comical way. Yeah, I don't recommend it. Next is the leg, and this one's actually a little bit better, but it's still very limited in use. It uses barely any stamina, actually less than the bone. The thing is, its swing speed is a lot slower. What it can be good for is actually getting leaves, but I don't know, an upgraded stick or a stick is better for that, I think. If you're upgrading strength and you don't have the bone, this is probably the next best thing, if you want to use an auto clicker. But bones are ridiculously easy to get. You can actually get a bone from a leg just by putting it on a fire and letting it burn until it breaks into bones, if that makes sense. The next is the bone, actually. And it has one ability that is extremely useful, and that is raising strength. Every other use it has is terrible. It shouldn't be used for anything else. But because its strength raising ability is so good, I'm going to put it in A tier. With raising strength, you can raise 2 a day by swinging a weapon while you've got calories on hard survival, but on normal and hard, it's just 2 strength per day, I think it is. So what you do is at the end of the day, before the day runs over, so you max your strength out, I think it's 10 strength a day, I can't even remember, God, it's been so long. Just swing it non-stop using an auto clicker if you can. It's very good. But like I said, it's got no other use, it's just that one use. Makes it spicy. Strength will increase the damage of all your melee weapons by, I think, 70% at max, I think. Can't remember. I should do my research before I improv these videos like all my videos. Who writes scripts? It's certainly not me. Next is meats, and this includes rabbit meat, normal meat, small meat, lizard meat, God knows every meat, including fish. It's going straight in the F tier. It's got no use. There's just no point in using it as a weapon. Comical? Yeah, but it's just not worth it. There's just no point to it. It has no utility or anything. You're better off just cooking it or storing it on a drying rack. Next is Assorted Heads, and that includes like crocodile heads, shark heads, all that stuff. It's going straight in the F tier as well. There's just no use for it except for comical reasons. We've seen in footage of Sons of the Forest that you can hold up the head and show the enemies, so they might have a lot more use there. But there's just no utility or anything. The cannibal head actually can be used as an ingredient in stews, and it will give like 600 calories in hard survival. So that's a good use for it. But still, it's just gone an F. I can't be bothered justifying it even more. Next is a stick, and it's got an F tier as well. Just use an upgraded stick. This is just worse in every way. Its damage is so low. Just use it for building and stuff like that. Stick to the upgraded stick for weapons. There is no reason to be using this as a weapon whatsoever. Next is a rock, and I'm going to put that in F tier as well. Only reason you might want to use it is for the achievement. I think it's called Skull Crusher or Head Crusher or something, where you finish off a cannibal with a rock. And it is this rock, not the upgraded rock. Next is a skull. That's going to go down there too. Just no point. It doesn't have any utility or anything like that. This is where I realized that I stuffed up. This head is different to the other heads, like animal heads and that. But I'm just going to put it under here anyway because it's in the same thing. This head does do a lot more damage and things, but it's just... what's the point? Now we're getting into something that's a little bit more complicated, and the ways they deal damage is a lot different, which is the crafted bow and modern bow, because you have 5 different variants of arrows. So how am I going to do this? Straight up, I'm going to do them both at the same time, and that is they both go into S tier. I do have a preference for the crafted bow over the modern bow for a lot of reasons. Those are that the crafted bow fires a lot faster. The arrows don't go as fast, so you're less likely to lose them. It's better against cannibals because you can just get headshot after headshot. Its drawback speed is a lot faster, and it's much easier to get. The modern bow, on the other hand, has those things, but it does a lot more damage, especially with modern arrows. And it's really good at actually taking down bigger mutants. The problem is that it's in a very difficult spot to get to. You got to go into one of the end caves right down the bottom and use the scuba gear to swim through a tunnel to get to the other side. And that room you go into is filled with 2 Virginians and a lot of cannibals and babies. What you can do is lure them into the water so they drown themselves, so you don't have to deal with them all. They're both brilliant weapons, because headshots in the forest are overpowered, and both of these weapons do it very well. I should say that this tier list wasn't done before I started recording this. I didn't have a preemptive idea of where these were going to go. So this is all what I think at this time. But covering the bows, I should cover the arrows next. I'm going to cover the normal arrow first, and I'm going to put it in B tier. They're the easiest arrow to craft, and you can make them fairly early on if you can get a couple of birds. If you're just going for headshots, it's all you really need. No, actually, I'm going to C tier, because it is the weakest arrow. It is easy to make, etc. I think every arrow after you fire, when you pick it up, it turns into this arrow. Like if you fire a fire arrow or poison arrow, it becomes a normal arrow. And it's possibly the same with the modern arrow. Arrows are pretty bugged in this game in that they can convert between each other. So like if you convert a modern arrow into a fire or poison arrow, it just becomes a normal arrow like that. They use the same code. They didn't really make different ones for each one. I think you can safely use a bone basket and put all these in there and they'll come out that way. But yeah, it's just really buggy. Also, get a quiver. You can carry 50 arrows instead of 30. The next arrow is a bone arrow, and I'm going to put it in E tier, I think. The main reason for that is that they require bones to craft, and I think quite a lot, 2 or 3. And bones are best used on armor. They do 40% more damage than normal arrow, but if you're going for headshots, just use this arrow, the normal one. Bone arrows were a lot better before the modern arrow, which I'm getting to now, which the modern arrow actually goes in S tier. The reason being is that it's so easy to find, and every time you save and reload, they respawn. So you can get a crap ton of them. There's a place called the Film Crew Camp where there's like 30 of them. So you can raid it every time you save and reload and just stock up on arrows. You actually don't even need to craft arrows. You really don't. The modern arrow combined with the modern bow does a lot of damage. Obviously, it's probably specifically made for it. Even the color scheme's similar. The downside is, as I mentioned before, if you turn it into a fire arrow or a poison arrow, it turns it into a normal arrow after it's fired. So if you collect it, it becomes the normal arrow. But there's just so many of them and it's so easy to get. The bone arrow does 40% more than the normal arrow, but I don't know how much more damage the modern arrow does to the bone arrow because its values change with the modern bow. It does a lot more damage with that. I think it's about 60% more than normal arrow. So with this, you'll get about a 20% damage boost using the modern arrow, but with the modern bow, it's just even more. It's like 40%, so it's like double damage of the normal arrow. I think I'm going to have the stats on the side, which you'll be able to see, and then you'll be able to go, oh, Farket doesn't know his shit, or he does know his shit. I don't know. They're just so easy to get. Just use them. I'm telling you what to do here. I'm going to cover the fire arrow next. And I'm so used to playing on hard survival, and on the harder modes, hard and hard survival, fire does like 66% less damage to enemies. I'm going to put it in C tier. This is actually a weapon I could have had hard survival or normal attached to it because it's very different. So I'm going to balance it. If it was hard and hard survival, I'd put it here. If it was normal, I'd put it probably here. It's just a pain having to light him. You can use the standing torch. I swear when the player goes to light the arrow, it's like he's moving in slow motion. It feels like it takes forever. What this is good for is cowmen, because it can keep them stun locked. When they're on fire, they cannot do anything. They're completely paralyzed. They're the only mutant like that. The cannibals are like that, but mutants are a lot more dangerous, and you kind of want to keep a cowman stun locked. So keep them on fire. It's fairly expensive to make. I like to use boozers for upgrading weapons and their damage, or making bombs or making Molotovs. It's up to you. I think that's a good spot for it. Next is a poison arrow. This one's a tricky one. It actually does a lot more damage than I originally suspected, and I think it slows enemies down by 25%. The problem is crafting them is such a pain in the ass. It really is. Because you're most likely going to be using the modern arrows. You don't really want to turn them into normal arrows. If you get really good with them and you like staying on top of them and you don't mind crafting them, this is probably the go-to arrow that you can use. I'm going to put it in B tier because it is better than the fire arrow. The damage I got from the values was really inconsistent. Like it did more damage sometimes than others, but it was always really high. And you're putting yourself at an advantage that you can slow them down, which is good, isn't it? Isn't it, friends? 1 mushroom or 4 poisonous berries to craft 5. If you're starting out in the forest, use this a lot. I just didn't get in the habit of doing it, maybe because I found it too tedious. In the recommendations for adding things to Sons of the Forest, it did say quick menu. If you could quickly add it on the go and not bloody have to open up your crafting menu every time you bloody have to do it, it'd be better. A lot better, actually. But yeah, but that's enough for bows. I think I covered everything. There's going to be a separate table somewhere in here, probably right now, because that's where the spot's going to go for it. Just some values and tests I did. I didn't finish it because I got frustrated with the inconsistencies in it, but hopefully it helps. The next weapon is a crossbow, and I'm going to put it in A tier. It's actually the highest damaging range weapon, I think, aside from the Incendiary Spear, which I should have probably covered with other spears, but oh well. The problem with it is that you can only hold 10 bolts. You kind of need the rebreather to get it, and the bolts are just not that common. They can be recollected. You don't want to miss your target. I suggest that you only use this on mutants because it just does so much damage. If you want headshots, use bows. But the reason it's an A tier is that its ammunition is just too difficult to find, and its capacity is just too low. Its reload speed is pretty slow too, so you're a bit of a sitting duck while using it. Next is the Flintlock Pistol, and it's actually very similar to the crossbow in that it's slow to reload, does a lot of damage, the ammo's not so abundant. The thing is you can carry unlimited ammo with the Flintlock Pistol. The problem is trying to get headshots with it is just terrible, and its damage isn't that great, and it's an absolute pain in the ass to craft because you have to go to 8 different locations to find the parts to make the weapon. I actually think Endnight was trolling us with making it because people wanted a gun. They gave us a gun, but they made it terrible and hard to find. It's kind of cool as well, the sound effects, and it didn't ruin the game experience by making it too overpowered that you needed to get it, but it's gone to the D tier. It's just a pain, and getting headshots with it's infuriating. The iron sights on it just way off. The unlimited ammo is kind of a cool thing, but yeah, you got to go in the caves to get the ammo. To think you've got to use 8 bombs, 8 dynamite or 8 something to blow up the caches to get the parts for it. Yeah, it's staying there. Next is the Incendiary Spear, and this is, like I said, the highest damaging thrown thing or even whatever in the game. I'm always too scared of losing it, and it's kind of a one-shot thing. If you're playing multiplayer on hard or hard survival with PvP damage turned off, if you hit them once with this, they're probably going to die. I don't think there's anything they can do to save themselves unless they got armor. I can't remember. It's too limited in its use. You only carry one. I was going to put it in C tier. You can always just upgrade the upgraded spear and just use it as is, and then in emergencies you could use it to throw it, because it does the damage of getting hit by a spear, and then it sets them on fire as well. Very good on normal mode against enemies. Terrible on hard and hard survival because of the 66% damage decrease of fire. It really was brutal, 66% less damage. It's a lot. So yeah, don't lose it, it's not worth it. Next is a repair hammer. This is pretty cool because it can be used to take down stick trees and it doesn't cost any stamina. It's a bit pricey to make, I think, because it uses a bit of sap, which you want to be using on upgraded weapons. But it can't hurt enemies. It can repair structures. So that's pretty useful in that aspect. I'm going to put it in D tier. It's just not that great. I mean, there's no stamina thing for taking out stick trees, but you want to raise your strength. One of the ways to do that is to collect sticks by knocking down stick trees. Yeah, might seem good, but really you're doing yourself a disservice by using it, because you might as well raise your strength while you're out there. Next is the throwable rock, and that's going straight in the F tier. It's terrible. I mean, you can use it to get enemies' attention and stuff, but in terms of damage and that, you're better off just using a slingshot, which I'm getting to now. A slingshot can go in A tier. It is bloody excellent for taking out small critters like rabbits, lizards and stuff, because it one-shots them. And it's got an AoE effect, so if you're not very good with aiming, it's brilliant. Because you've got to be very good at hitting small critters with the bow to be able to actually hit them. The aim has got to be pretty precise. I also like using it to provoke enemies to attack me because I don't want to waste an arrow. I'll fire one at them and they'll come charging at me immediately. And then I switch to a better weapon. It's very good. It uses duct tape, but you usually get one piece of it at the start when you open up the suitcases. On hard and hard survival, you'll get more on normal. But yeah, very handy weapon. Probably should go in B tier because it's not that useful. Yeah, I might put it in B tier. I just use it a lot, so probably more of a subjective thing why I put it in A, but I think it probably deserves to be in B. Well, maybe it's just me trying to be OCD, trying to fill out the lines, I don't know. But you know how I stand, I'm telling you where it should be, based on the subjective-objective thing. I wonder if there's going to be any comments saying, every time that Farket says subjective and subjective, take a shot. Please don't, I don't want to be responsible for any alcoholism. Next is a Molotov. This is another one of those hard survival versus normal things because of the 66% less damage thing. So if I was to say in normal mode, I would probably put it here. For hard and hard survival, I'd put it here. So what I'm going to do is put it here in the middle. For some reason in the game, you can carry more Molotovs than bottles of booze. You can carry like 9 of these. You can use them to make Molotov traps, which can be useful. I'm not a big fan of single-use traps though. I don't know, it just takes too long to light. It's the same problem with the fire arrow. You watch him slowly drag the lighter over to the thing to light it, and it's just like, come on, man. It's a life and death situation. You really want to be faster at it. Can be good for setting leaf pile traps on fire, because it's hard to miss with it. Yeah, I'm happy with this spot. It's alright, they're cheap to make, just too slow to light. That's my main issue with it. If it was fast to light, it'd probably go up 2 spots. Next is a bomb. And It's going an E tier, eh? Oh no, what am I doing? Yeah, screw it, it's going an E tier. And the reason being is that after duct tape was added, they made it so it's a requirement to craft it. The problem is it's such a pain in the ass to find duct tape. It barely spawns anywhere. On normal, you're going to have a lot better of a time. Because of how hard it is to craft, it just kills its use so much. Oh, maybe because you can throw it instantly, but then they dodge it. No, it's staying there. Because you don't have to light it, you just throw it. The thing is, in the forest, if you throw them at enemies, they will run away from it. The problem is, it's just so damn hard to craft. So because it's so damn hard, you don't want to use them. You want to save them for the emergencies that probably never happen. It does less damage than the dynamite and head bomb. I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Next is a sticky bomb, and I was going to put it here, but I decided I'm going to put it here. Because it's more unique. You can throw it or attach to an enemy, and yeah. But if you miss, it'll stick to the ground, and it can be even worse than the bomb. But just because of that unique sticky thing, it's just attaching one sap to a normal bomb makes it that way. But it has the same problem as the bomb, is that it's difficult to craft. You just craft the bomb and then attach the sap to it. It's just disappointing why they did that. If they didn't, it'd be way up higher. It annoys me. It really does. It's not good for taking down trees either, because its blast radius is actually quite a lot smaller than the dynamite. I actually never tested the blast radius of the bombs, head bomb and dynamite, but I think the dynamite has the largest radius, I think. It also does the most damage. Next is the head bomb, and it's kind of E tier, because you need a bomb to make it, and then you got to strap the head to it. It just rolls around and takes forever to explode. You can't attach it to objects to be able to kill things, so most of the time you're going to use it, it's not going to hit your intended target. The reason these three are so low is because of how good the dynamite is. I probably should have started with the dynamite first, actually, but yeah, the head bomb, I just craft it, and you probably will never use it. You might use it once and go, God, that's terrible. But let's move on to the dynamite, and that is definitely S tier, because it's so easy to get. It respawns. The damage is heaps higher than the bomb and head bomb. Its blast radius is much higher. It's excellent for taking down trees. You can take down 10 trees with this thing, with one stick. If you're getting overwhelmed by enemies, what you can do is light it and attach it to a tree, and they won't run away from it. I've taken out groups of like 5 cannibals with these things, and a lot of trees too. Bloody excellent. I love this stuff. It's even better than the chainsaw, I think, for taking down trees. Next is the flare gun, and this is the hard normal problem again. I would put it here for normal, here for hard, so once again I'm going to put it in the middle. Actually, I'm going to move it up one higher purely for one reason, and that is the end boss, because the end boss is very difficult to hit with just about every weapon in the game. It has this really bad hitbox, and you understand if you said it's basically like a spider thing, so it's really hard to hit it with anything. But the flare gun, on the other hand, it's really hard not to hit it with it, because it has this big AoE as it's flying through the air. Also, the benefits with it are just great, in that the ammo is unlimited, so you can keep crafting flares and making unlimited ammo for it. So with the flares, you can only carry 10, but you can always just craft them into flare ammo. It is much better on normal, as mentioned, but it doesn't actually do any damage when it hits. It's the fire that does the damage. So there's no collision sort of like 20 damage, then fire damage. You're just setting them on fire from a range. But also, when you kill that end boss, after you do it and you pick the ending that allows you to continue playing, that mutant starts to spawn in the real world, and you're going to need the flare gun to deal with it. There is a bug that if the girl mutant dies while on fire, it keeps making a screaming noise. They never fix that, and it's really annoying, especially if it's in your base. The only way to fix it is to save and reload. But those girl mutants, you get like 3 pieces of mutant armor from them. So yeah, very good weapon, I think. Even on hard and hard survival. Good for the cowman. Next is the Spraycan. I don't use this too often, but you can literally just set a whole platoon of cannibals on fire in like a second or two. It doesn't really have the problem of the lighter being slow to react and set it on fire, but I find its uses in hard and hard survival quite limited. In normal would probably be A tier. You can also use it to set campfires and bodies on fire. Oh man, where would I put it? I'm kind of leaning between these two. I don't usually like using it to set bodies on fire though, because if I do it and the body burns out and turns to bones, you have to rely on where that was, otherwise you won't see where the body was. I usually use campfires because the campfire still burns. You can see a physical marker of where it is. I just gotta put it in B tier. I think I'm happy with that. It's got a lot of utility and it's a decent weapon. And finally is Timmys Toy. Don't think I recorded many stats of this thing and what it does, but it swings really slow, but it does a lot of damage, and I think it doesn't even need to be completed. It just does that damage. So if you just pick up a toy arm and hit things with it, it's going to do nearly the same amount of damage as a modern axe, I think. Don't quote me on it, but it's gimmicky. but it doesn't use stamina. But it's funny to beat an enemy to death with it, especially in arms. I did a whole video on it just because I thought it was so funny. I'll put it in C tier. Yeah, I think that's a good spot for it. So that's it. I think looking at this list, I'm happy with it. On PC, you've only got 4 weapon slots for what you can put things in. I'll just quickly tell you what I do with mine. 1 is always the modern axe. 2 is either between the upgraded stick and the tennis racket. It varies. The upgraded stick has a little bit more utility, I think. 3rd, I always have a ranged weapon. So it's either the crafted bow or modern bow. Usually for me, it's the crafted bow. And 4th, it actually switches between the berry pouch and the weak spear, but that's all just me. The stuff that you use the most often. And those are the things I use most often. So yeah, I'm going to put up the whole table of stats that I've collected over the course of the last 4 years I've been making videos and the tests I've done and stuff. It's just the stuff that's on the sidebar. If you want to compare them to each other, it was in an Excel document, but yeah, you could just use this. There's a lot of image to text converters now, so you could probably use that. This video is in 4K, so it should be high enough quality that you could do that if you wanted to make changes to the list and make your own or anything like that. But Sons of the Forest is coming out soon, and I'm pretty done with this game, I think. But yeah. Anyway, be sure to leave in the comments what you think of my list. You can do one yourself, share it around, post it in my Discord if you want. Looking back on this, I think changes I would have made as hard and hard survival and normal. Probably attach them to fire weapons, like the Molotov, Incendiary Spear, fire arrow. It might have become too convoluted, because I just found the middle ground. I put it in between where it probably should be. If you watch the whole video, you'd realize that. Make your own decision. But yeah, anyway, hopefully you found this video useful for the next how many days it is until Sons of the Forest comes out. And don't worry about it flopping, because I know it's not. It is very, very good. Anyway, if you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe. Cheers.